Transportation, a means of traveling. Out of cars, trucks, planes, and trains, motorcycles are the one means of transport more vulnerable to injuries and death. Without a doubt, it is a rush. And sometimes, even without thinking, we riders are placing our lives at great risk. You do not have to become the next statistic. Learning a little more about your bike and easy ways to protect yourself in traffic can ensure your safety. Plus, rest assured, you won't have to sacrifice the great rush. Bottom line, ride smart. Magnet, a source of great attraction. And Florida is a magnet for motorcycle riders.
I like riding my bike in Florida because we can ride 24/7, 365 days a year.
The climate is temperate enough. Sometimes it's a little too hot, sometimes it's too wet, but that's part of being a motorcyclist. If you're not willing to take on those things, then that's what they have cars for.
When you twist that throttle and you get going, it's like you're in your own world. It's you in the road, you in the air, you know. It's just a different feeling. It's adrenaline.
That's my passion, that's my enjoyment. To me, riding a motorcycle is like flying a plane. You're just lower to the ground.
Unfortunately, Florida also sees its fair share of motorcycle crashes, injuries, and fatalities. In fact, Florida has consistently placed above the national averages in the proportion of motorcyclists killed in traffic crashes compared to all other traffic fatalities. Since the late 1990s, the number of motorcycle crashes and injuries have more than doubled in our state.
I was thrown off my bike probably about 6 feet in the air and impacted a light pole headfirst.
I had a big trash can jump out in front of me and went sliding down the interstate, doing about 70, and
boom. Next thing I knew, I was laying on the freeway. I remember sliding on the left side. I remember flying through the air. I think I remember saying, oh, this is gonna hurt. I never thought it would happen to me. I mean, I chair the Personal Protective Committee for the Motorcycle Safety Coalition here in the state of Florida. Never thought it could possibly happen.
So what are the contributing factors that put Florida in this vulnerable category? Florida is and continues to be a magnet to those who love the open road. We are a popular tourist destination and host several motorcycle enthusiast events throughout our long fair weather season.
Those weekends include Biketoberfest and Bike Week. We get hundreds of thousands of people join us as neighbors and friends as they come into town. And making sure that they're safe during these events is paramount.
During those events, you see a higher volume of motorcycle crashes beyond the normal commuters. You also have your special event traffic from all over the country.
There is a direct correlation between the counties where these events take place, their dense populations, and the occurrence of fatalities.
It was quite alarming to find that our preconceived ideas that the motorcyclist was at fault were far from the truth. In fact, we learned in our own community that quite frequently it was the local residents that were at fault in at least, if not more than half of these motorcycle crashes and fatalities. It really opened our eyes to where we needed to focus our attention. We came up with a campaign called Look Twice, Save a Life, and it was with that campaign that in the first year, second, and third years that we immediately saw results in the decrease in the number of fatalities here in Central Florida during these special events, and it was very rewarding.
No one ever gets on a motorcycle planning to crash. But as you're headed to the pavement, it's not a good time to say, gee, I wish I'd put a helmet on this morning.
Right here you can somewhat see that there's a crinkle mark where it actually impacted. On the other side, it did a pressure crack to release the actual impact. And on the inside, if you were to take a look, you can actually see where the actual helmet actually spider cracked to where it absorbed the impact. I use it every day for customers to see what can happen. To this day, I still wear top-of-line helmets. It's an investment in your life.
You know, things happen out there all the time. And so with all the safety protection gear, with the boots and the helmets and the gloves and the safe jackets and everything, when I stopped rolling, I got up and I rode the motorcycle home.
I had on an armored jacket, which is basically was a nylon jacket with plastic armoring in it, and that protected my shoulder and my arm as I was sliding down the pavement. It was abrasion-resistant material. It got torn up, but my skin didn't get torn up. I had a heavy pair of jeans, leather boots, leather gloves, a DOT helmet that would have, it would have been my head that would have suffered that damage had it not been for the helmet.
The ones that have the helmet and wear the safety gear are the ones that we see walking out of the hospital. And they may have extensive extremity injuries and stuff that they have to get over, but they walk out with their head intact and their brain intact.
There are more riders on the road now than ever before. From 1991 to 2009, the number of motorcycle registrations have increased nearly 3.5 times. In 2009, motorcycles accounted for just over 6% of all registered vehicles, yet they represented nearly 16% of all fatal crashes. One critical contributing factor is that some riders are not getting properly trained and endorsed. About 25% of Florida's motorcycle riders do not have a valid motorcycle endorsement. Of the remaining 75%, 25% of these riders never attended any formal training. In 2008, Florida implemented a law requiring a basic rider training course for all riders seeking a motorcycle endorsement. Also significant, the Florida Motorcycle Safety Coalition was established in the same year, a group of dedicated partners around the state working together to improve safety. Legal, allowed under the law. In Florida, everyone is required to attend a motorcycle training safety course to obtain an endorsement. Legally, this means a minimum 12 hours of instruction and at least 6 hours in actual operation. We are starting to see a significant reduction in motorcycle fatalities and injuries, partially due to the efforts of the Safety Coalition and the new rider training law. Good news, when we focus on safety, we can achieve results.
We can't stop the people in the cars from doing the stupid things they're going to do to us, but how we react, how we perceive what they might do, and how we change what we're going to do in our riding habits ahead of time prevents the crashes from even occurring. So that's the biggest benefit of the rider training programs in Florida.
Awareness and technique. If you think about trying to throw a strike over home plate, if you're looking at center field, it's not going to happen. You got to look where you want your motorcycle to go. Where you are right now, it's too late to do anything about. You need to be thinking ahead. You're constantly thinking ahead.
There's an easy way to estimate the recommended safe space by allowing the vehicle in front of you to pass a fixed object and then count 1001, 1002. You should be able to at least get to the count of 2 to reach that same object.
People, when they're presented a decision-making process, they may not be aware of what's behind them, switch lanes, and it may be the motorcycle. So expect the unexpected, prepare for someone next to you, in front of you, behind you to make a mistake and be able to respond.
Most of the people, blame the car. They blame something else besides themselves. And what we're trying to teach them is, yes, you can be 100% right, but you can be dead right. So you have to be defensive. You have to realize the car doesn't see you. You can't control the other driver in the car. So the way to survive is to ride very defensively.
Here's some more good news. More Florida riders are getting trained since the passage of the 2008 requirement. And there was a significant reduction in fatalities within just 15 months of the law. Since 2007, Florida has experienced more than a 30% reduction in fatalities and a 19% reduction in crashes. But we still need your help in our initiative towards 0 deaths. Gear, the equipment needed for a particular activity.
When I'm on the road, I have on my protective jacket and then a reflective, bright-colored vest, so the visibility is there. Day and night, it has reflective strips on it, whether it be the orange color or the green colors, to hopefully break up so they see it easier.
I'm alive today because I was wearing high-end safety gear. I was wearing a top-of-the-line helmet, a leather jacket, pants, spine protector, street boots. And if I wasn't wearing that, then I wouldn't be here today.
In 2000, Florida became one of 6 states to repeal the universal helmet law. In 2009, 29% of motorcycle fatalities were related to traumatic brain injuries that most likely could have been avoided with helmet use. For non-fatal injuries that required hospitalization, injuries to the lower extremities were responsible for the highest percentage of hospitalizations, followed by traumatic brain and torso injuries. In 2009, total hospital charges for the initial treatment of all motorcyclists injured in traffic crashes was $385,492,147. Obviously, the proper and consistent use of personal protective gear by Florida bikers can have a positive impact on these statistics moving forward.
We have a lot of motorcycle crashes in our trauma center. We have 4 or 5 a week, which is quite a few. And the types of patients that usually come in immediately with a fatality would be a patient that didn't wear a helmet and had a head injury. And those patients can die from a devastating brain injury, or they can end up in a type of vegetative state, or they can have, severe disability. The other types of crashes are patients that are riding at very high speeds, and they have a predominant number of devastating pelvic fractures. They come in exsanguinating, which is bleeding to death, or we've seen several patients now that have had their legs ripped off from going at high speeds and brushing up against guardrails or some other object that just takes their leg off.
You do it for the lives you save, and you know that you can't save everybody, but we do what we can. We get them to the hospital, the appropriate hospital for their care, and hope they can save them from there.
Remember, we live in a beautiful part of the country with year-round great weather. The sheer number of tourists and residents here, combined with the rising number of motorcycle riders, means you have to be proactive about riding safe. We know we've given you a lot of information in a short period of time, but here are the most important things to remember. Attending an official training class, getting endorsed, and using personal protective gear are 3 essential steps towards surviving the ride. Getting trained is a big benefit, even if you are an experienced rider. As a motorcycle rider, you are exposed every time you ride. You have to watch out for yourself, every other vehicle on the road, and a multitude of hazards and obstacles like railroad tracks or uneven pavement. It's a lot to think about and safely react to. You have to practice defensive riding and assume cars and trucks don't readily see you. And you have to leave the right amount of space between you and other vehicles. There's no good reason why you can't be safe, feel the rush of the open road and the wind in your face, and live to tell about it.
We really do want people to ride motorcycles. The state of Florida is probably one of the better states to ride a motorcycle in because you can do it year-round. There's no time when you have to park it in the garage and wait. As part of the Motorcycle Coalition, our biggest emphasis is we want them to ride, but we want them to be safe. Be safe out there, wear the safety gear, wear the helmet. It's really worth it in the long run. It'll save your life someday.
There is no greater escape than the power of a motorcycle, and no better state than Florida in which to experience it. Ride Smart, Florida. RideSmartFlorida.com is a comprehensive resource for motorcycle riders, motorcycle training professionals, local governments, law enforcement agencies, emergency first responders, or anyone interested in improving motorcycle safety in Florida.